Hey y'all, Pawpaw here. Welcome to 12 Days of Christmas Stories, number 5. Tonight we're going to do The Nutcracker, retold by Norma Elizabeth, illustrated by Anita S. Bice. I would like to dedicate this story, I would like to dedicate to my mom and daddy. We call them Nana and Poppy. This one's for y'all. The Nutcracker. Once upon a time, in Nuremberg, Germany, snowflakes fell softly on Christmas Eve, turning the whole city into a sparkling wonderful wonderland. In those days, people had parties and gave gifts the night before Christmas instead of Christmas morning. All of the children tried to be on their best behavior. Even though they were very excited, they couldn't wait for the grandparents and the aunts and the uncles and friends to arrive so they could open their presents. Laura and her older brother, Fritz, waited for their guests in the parlor near the Christmas tree. They thought it was the most magnificent tree in the whole wide world. It reached almost to the ceiling, and every branch held a beautiful ornament that sparkled in the candlelight. A lovely angel with gossamer wings smiled down at them from the tip top, and toys and packages tied with wonderful bows peeked out from under the bottom branches. The children impatiently watched their mother and father greet the people who came to their house. They wished everyone would hurry up and take off their hats and coats so the party could start. Clara and Fritz delighted when Clara's godfather, Dr. Drosselmeyer, arrived with an armful of presents. They knew his gifts would be the best of all because he was no ordinary doctor. He was an inventor. He created marvelous toys that could move and speak. That Christmas Eve, Dr. Drosselmeyer gave Fritz a lively jack-in-the-box and an army of splendid wooden soldiers. He gave Clara 2 wind-up dancing dolls, a miniature castle surrounded by a moat and beautiful garden, and an elegantly carved doll-sized boat. The children thanked Dr. Drosselmeyer for the wonderful gifts and showed them to everyone at the party. But Dr. Drosselmeyer had one more gift to give that night. Reaching deep into the red lining of his purple cloak, he pulled out a long box tied with pink satin ribbon and placed it gently in Clara's arms. Somehow Clara knew this was a very special gift, something her godfather had made just for her. She carefully untied the bow and opened the box. Inside, she found a handsome wooden soldier in full dress uniform. Clara thought to herself that the soldier's head was far too big for his body, and she wondered about his large jaws until Fritz exclaimed, "It's a nutcracker!" Clara put a small nut in the soldier's mouth and pressed the lever at the back of his head. The soldier easily cracked the nut and dropped it into Clara's hand. "I want it," yelled Fritz, yanking the nutcracker out of Clara's hand. He quickly stuffed several large nuts into the soldier's mouth and pressed down hard on the lever. With a painful crack, the soldier's jaws broke, and the three of his perfectly formed teeth fell out. "Oh no," cried Clara, reaching for the broken soldier and cradling him in her arms. The soldier's bright blue eyes seemed to look deep into hers, and Clara snuggled him tighter. Dr. Drosselmeyer stooped over, and picked up the soldier's broken teeth and tucked them into one of the small pockets of his gold vest. Then he knelt down next to Clara and helped her wrap a handkerchief around the nutcracker's head to hold his broken jaws together. Clara gently kissed the wooden soldier on the cheek, being careful not to disturb the bandages. She whispered that she loved him and would not let anyone hurt him ever again. By this time, it was almost midnight, and Dr. Drosselmeyer and the other guests wished Fritz, Clara, and their parents a Merry Christmas and went home. Clara's mother helped her put on her nightgown, tucked her into her bed, and kissed her good night. As soon as her mother left her bedroom, Clara climbed out of bed and slipped quietly into the parlor. She wanted to make sure her nutcracker was safe for the night. She gently tucked the wounded soldier into a doll-sized bed in the glass cabinet where she and Fritz kept the wonderful toys Dr. Drosselmeyer had made for them. She gave her beloved nutcracker another soft kiss on the cheek before she closed the cabinet door. Clara suddenly felt so tired that she lay down on the sofa next to the cabinet and promptly fell asleep. A strange scratching sound woke her up, and when Clara opened her eyes, she let out a scream. Hundreds of mice were skittering across the room. Their leader, a mouse as big as Clara, was urging them towards the glass cabinet to attack the wooden soldiers Dr. Drosselmeyer had made for Fritz. Clara's wounded nutcracker, riding a spirited horse Dr. Drosselmeyer had also made, was leading the soldiers in the battle against the mice. Clara started cheering on her beloved nutcracker and the wooden soldiers. They fought valiantly, but the mice outnumbered them. As Clara watched her brave nutcracker courageously raise his sword, ready to attack the Mouse King, seeing the danger her wounded soldier faced, Clara sprang into action. She pulled off her right slipper and threw it at the Mouse King, shouting, "Leave my nutcracker alone!" Clara's slipper hit the Mouse King and knocked off his crown. Poof! The king and all of his mice vanished. Clara couldn't believe her eyes when the nutcracker's wounds healed instantly, and he turned into a handsome prince. "My dear Clara," he said, "you have saved my life." The prince picked up the Mouse King's crown and offered it to Clara. "Please let me put this crown on your head and take you to my kingdom, the land of the Sugar Plum Fairy." "Oh, yes," said Clara. "I'd like to see your kingdom." Taking Clara's hand, the prince led her to a pink lemonade stream that had appeared out of nowhere and helped her into a beautifully carved boat. As the prince guided the boat downstream, he told Clara about the and spell a witch had cast on him when he was a little boy. The witch turned him into a nutcracker and told him that the only way he could become a prince again was to win a battle and have a beautiful lady fall in love with him. "Thank you, Clara, for loving me and helping me defeat the Mouse King and his mice," said the prince. You are most welcome," replied Clara, smiling happily. As they rounded a bend in the stream, a beautiful castle came into view. "That is my home, Clara. The Sugar Plum Fairy will be waiting to greet us," the prince told her. Clara clapped her hands in delight. When their boat reached the stairs leading up from the moat to the castle, gumdrops and meringue swirls lined the staircase that led through the gardens of bright, colorful flowers and groves of red licorice, shrubs, and peppermint stick trees. Just as the prince had told her, the Sugar Plum Fairy was awaiting for them. She stood with her arms open, ready to hug them. Clara thought she was the most beautiful lady she had ever seen. The Sugar Plum Fairy led them to the ballroom where people from all over the kingdom had gathered for a grand party to celebrate the prince's homecoming and to honor Clara. Clara and the prince sat together on a golden throne and munched on delicious cookies and candies while his loyal subjects entertained them with music and dancing. Some of the dancers twirled so fast that their feet hardly seemed to touch the floor, and some of them leaped so high that they seemed to touch the ceiling. Clara turned to the prince and said, "I wish I could dance like that." Before the words were out of her mouth, Clara found herself in the middle of the dancers. She seemed to be dancing on air. As she twirled faster and faster and leaped higher and higher, the prince joined her, and they danced until the dawn. As dawn cast its rosy tint across the morning sky and the birds began to sing, the prince helped Clara back into the beautifully carved boat and took her home. "Thank you for a wonderful time," Clara told him when he leaned over and kissed her hand. She kept waving goodbye until his boat disappeared around the bend in the stream. Then she climbed into her bed, snuggled down under the blankets, and fell sound asleep. A man's voice saying, "Merry Christmas," woke her up. Then she heard her mother reply, "Merry Christmas, Dr. Drosselmeyer." Clara sat up in bed. Her godfather had arrived to eat Christmas breakfast with them. She couldn't wait to tell him about the Mouse King and the battle and her wounded Nutcracker turning into a handsome prince and the wonderful party in the land of the Sugar Plum Fairy. She wanted to thank him again for his very special gift, the splendid Nutcracker he had made just for her. The end. I hope y'all enjoyed the story. I'm sorry, I'm getting over the flu, so I have a little bit of trouble reading sometimes. But I truly hope y'all enjoyed the story. Y'all join me tomorrow for Pawpaw's 12 Days of Christmas Stories, number 6. You'll just have to wait to see what I'm reading then. But until then, y'all have a good one, and we'll see you next time.